Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the ANSI ISEA Z358.1 and Emergency Shower Eyewash Compliance Comprehensive Guide. Thank you very much for being here. We're very excited about the presentation, very excited to get going. First off, I want to mention a real quick disclaimer. This presentation is not meant to be distributed widely, rather to be used for educational purposes only. Although I'm going to share it with you after the presentation. We'll give you a PDF copy of it so that you have you're not furiously taking notes over the next hour, and you can go forth and share this knowledge with your coworkers and maintenance staff and everybody else. So no worries there. Be sure to post your questions. If you have a question that comes up in your mind as we're progressing through this, or if you showed up to the webinar with a question in mind, please use the question panel there. Enter your question. I've got my buddy on the back end. He's watching the Q&A or questions as they come in, and we'll get to all of them via an Excel format. But later I'm going to try to, Hayden and I are going to try to squeeze through a bunch of them before the end of the webinar. Okay, so make sure, submit those when you get a chance. Also, the webinar is recorded. So you'll have a full recording of this webinar too, okay? It's a very handy tool to have in your back pocket and to be able to share. It's also be on our Haas YouTube page, but it will be available on demand about 24 to 48 hours after the presentation, hopefully closer to 24. You'll see a follow-up email from us. We are going to launch poll questions throughout the presentation. But there's a couple interactive ones. We'll share some of the information with you. Your participation is really greatly appreciated. It helps us to continue to improve this product for you. Make sure we're touching on all the subjects you want us to touch on, and that this is useful to you to the utmost degree. Now, a follow-up survey is also going to be sent out after the webinar. If you participate, we greatly appreciate it, but I'll also hook you up with the $5 Starbucks gift card. Now, that is me, Justin Dunn, Senior Field Marketing Specialist, presenting. On the back end is my buddy, who is not Alex McCombs. He totally told me to change that, and I didn't. This is Hayden Delgado, and he is our spec manager. He's a big deal, not Alex McCombs. Hayden, do you want to say hi real quick?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Hayden. I am a specification manager with Haas, and I've been with Haas for about 5 years, and I should have known not to message Justin to change a slide after business hours yesterday.
That's true. That is a fact, and he's going to be wagging his finger at me after the webinar, which will be fun. We are both here with you. I'll be presenting. Hayden is going to run things on the back end, but he's going to help me with the Q&A section later on in the presentation as well. But we're going to cover the ANSI ISEA Z358.1 standard, the significant requirements of that standard, and tell you how to test for each of the requirements as we discuss them. We're going to talk about best practices for emergency equipment, resources for achieving compliance in your facilities, right? Because we don't want to tell you everything that you need to look at and not give you any tools to help you to get there, right? And then we'll end with the Q&A and some information on how to contact us and stuff like that. Let's start, and we'll get into the very first poll question and get that going. Hayden, would you please?
Yeah, so our first poll question today is, which best describes your role in choosing showers and eye face washes? Please select one option for this question. The options are place the order, install and or maintain product, specify products and plans, decide or make recommendations, and I do not have a role. And then I would also like to point out that I will be handling the questions on the back end of this webinar. So as Justin said, please feel free to post those at any time. I will try to get to everybody's questions. We do get quite a bit of questions for these webinars, so I can't promise that I will get to everybody during the webinar, but any questions I don't get to will be included in that follow-up email after the webinar today.
That way you can benefit from all the questions that everybody else had too, and the answers to them, which we think is super helpful.
All right, so it looks like the answers rolling in have slowed down a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll question.
All right, and then kind of getting into it. So OSHA, not quite the boogeyman everybody makes them out to be, but some people do treat them that way. They are the folks responsible for regulating emergency shower and eye wash facilities, and they have their own standard. That's OSHA's 29 CFR 1910.151C. Under medical services and first aid. Now the information they give us here is it's really just a paragraph, but they tell us, you know, where you might be exposed to injurious corrosive materials, that you need suitable facilities for the quick drenching and rinsing off of your eyes and skin. Now the thing with this is it doesn't tell me how, it doesn't tell me where, it doesn't give me any additional information about that equipment and how it's supposed to function. And that's where the Z358.1 standard comes in, and that's why they reference it. Now, what that standard does, Z358.1, is it prevents injuries and fatalities, right? If we're following this, we're looking at the black and white, and we are ensuring that this equipment is functioning in this fashion, it's delivering first aid and effectively, and that it's being tested regularly. You know, this is emergency equipment and stuff we don't want you to ever have to use, right? I hope it sits in the corner unused forever, right? But you have to have it, and it has to be installed, it has to be maintained correctly, just in case that day comes where it has to work, right? And if we're following Z358.1, we can save lives, is really what it boils down to. Now, it lowers general workplace risk, of course, and fulfills that promise of you're going to show up to work and we're going to keep you safe while you're here, and have the means to keep you safe while you're here. And then lost time and money for both the employer and for the employee through, you know, issues with litigation if emergency equipment didn't work the way it was supposed to, or your livelihood being affected by emergency equipment that didn't work, and so on. So following the Z358.1 standard can really help us to accomplish this. OSHA, they've stepped up enforcement, particularly for employers who have a history of serious or repeated violations. Two of the most serious violations you can get. Now, on August 1st, 2016, OSHA fines increased for the first time since 1990 by 80%, which was a huge deal. 80% is a gigantic margin. That almost doubled the existing fines, and it was a hard pill to swallow. But they had to catch up. They weren't effectively changing it to adjust for inflation, but they are doing that now, and effective year over year, they're going to adjust to account for inflation. So fines will only get more serious. It's important that we stay on top of this. So quick infographic for you. We actually have a new one on the way. We're going to be updating some information. But sometimes it's hard to get your hands on this type of stuff. You know, not every facility is certainly wants this type of information shared. But it's important for educational purposes, and this is all public information. So a couple really big numbers on there, and a couple small ones. So it depends. Did you not know any better, and you needed emergency equipment and you fixed it really quickly, or did you not do what OSHA told you to do when they wagged their finger at you, and you have a repeat or a serious violation, and you're getting one of those big numbers. I mean, almost $400,000 up there in the top right hand corner. So it varies wildly, the fines, and which really hopefully drives home why this can be so important. It'd be a hard pill to swallow for a lot of companies. So we're going to do our first interactive poll, and then we're going to get into the standard itself. So Hayden, please.
The first interactive poll question today is, what do you think the average OSHA fine is? So please select one for this again. The options are $0 to $1,000, $1,000 to $10,000, $11,000 to $25,000, and then $26,000 to $100,000. And this is an interactive poll question, so it'll be a little bit different than the last one. We will show the results just to show everybody how many people answered what option. So here are the results from that interactive poll question. It looks like almost 50% of people voted for 11,000 to 25,000, which was the top choice, and our lowest choice with just 3% of votes was $0 to $1,000. Thank you, everyone.
I think that is pretty darn accurate. I mean, definitely those slightly higher fines, the real big ones can be, I mean, real rare. Those, again, those are those serious or repeated violations where you ignored OSHA's advice, which is, it's a big no-no. Now, the standard itself was written by the International Safety Equipment Association, the ISEA. So it is the ANSI ISEA Z358.1 survey. ANSI, the ISEA wrote it. ANSI is the distribution the vehicle for it. That's how it's distributed to the public. And it defines emergency eyewash and shower design, location, temperature requirements, all for proper functionality and usage. Okay, and OSHA references that standard during the site inspections and in violation reporting, and is the recognized source for guidance to comply with their own 1910.151C. Now, it was first published in 1981, had many revisions since. Two of the most important were in 2009 and 2014. And some of the things we got were huge changes, especially in 2009. We got a temperature range for water delivery. It used to just say tepid, which was a different temperature for everybody. Simultaneous use requirements, testing requirements, which is still a hot topic and a hard one to get everybody to focus on sometimes. In 2014, we got a lot of revisions, including the design, manufacture, and installation, and some adjusted measurements, all for some of them geared towards manufacturers. Luckily, Haas was way ahead of the curve there, so it's really just helped to standardize how a lot of this looks, because you get those like Frankenstein units out there where you know, somebody slaps something together. We want to try to avoid that. Now, significant requirements, how to test. Now, this is really, really important, but it has to be tested on a weekly basis. Now, this is different for plumbed equipment and it's different for portable equipment. Okay, but it's not extreme. This isn't like a head-to-toe evaluation of the emergency equipment. The main goal here is ensuring that it's activating and ensuring that we're clearing out the dead leg in the pipe, right? If we don't have that water moving on a regular basis, we're going to get some nasty stuff in there, okay? So on the plumbed equipment, activate the device just long enough to ensure that the device is activating and working correctly, and that we're clearing out that nasty water in the line, or potentially nasty water in the line. If you're doing weekly checks, you're probably just fine. Now, on the portables, on portable self-contained equipment, whether it's air pressurized or gravity fed, it's just a visual inspection. You got to go to it, visually inspect that the tank is full or that the tank is pressurized correctly, and that's it. Sign the tag, walk away. Also, quick note, keep those tags because it's probably one of the first things that any inspectors are going to ask for if you do get a visit, okay? Now, I know you're all asking yourselves, but Justin, what happens if I don't test? That's a great question, guys. I'm really glad you asked. So these are some great examples of what happens when you're not clearing out your dead leg in your piping. You get the chocolate fountains, you get I think that's concentrated evil in the top left-hand corner, you get the Gatorade, coffee, you get all flavors of water and nasty stuff coming out of your equipment. And you do not want that going into your eyes and face, right? It is important to remember though that if you you've been exposed to something real nasty, corrosive or otherwise, in your eyes, in your face, it is important to just use the nasty water, unfortunately, okay? Better to deal with that later and get the nasty stuff off of you immediately than to cringe and say, I'm not using that, and, you know, deal with the ramifications of not getting the dangerous chemicals off of you. So use the nasty water, but unfortunately that could come with, you know, repercussions down the road. Legionella, and of other nasty, you know, diseases and issues that can come from using this nasty type of water. So make sure we're cleaning out that dead leg in the piping, okay? Now on once a year, on an annual basis, we do have to inspect the equipment from head to toe, okay? We have to activate it. We have to make sure the pull rod is at a certain height, the spray pattern's at a certain height, temperature, all of those things have to be tested. We have a handy dandy little checklist that makes things super easy for you. We'll include that in the follow-up materials, so you have your an inspection checklist as well. And we're going to go over all of these requirements in the following slides. But first, we're going to ask our next poll question.
Our next poll question is a new one to this webinar if you've attended in the past, and it is, how frequently is your facility testing their emergency equipment? If this question does not apply to you, please do not answer. And the options are weekly, monthly, annually, never, or not sure. And then a third party does it is the final option. And thank you to everybody who is participating in these poll questions today. We are getting a lot of participation. It helps us decide which questions to use going forward. As you can see here, we have a new question, and that way we're gathering information that's relevant to us and making sure that we're providing you with the right topics. Give it a few more seconds as answers are still coming in here before I close it up and turn it back over to Justin. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it up. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so moving on. Now, one of the things that you're going to need, some of the tools that you're going to need to accomplish this, either on the weekly checks or on your annual check, are you're going to.
Justin, it looks like we are having problems again, similar to our last webinar, where it's not advancing the slides. So if you don't mind, I'm going to try to reshare this again and close it out. If not, I will need you to close it out like last time. Oh, there it goes. Perfect.
Better?
That's perfect. Thank you.
I know the trick now. I know the trick. Okay, this is our 9011 test kit. And again, you're going to need some tools to help to get this going. Okay, so number one, you need a tape measure. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to measure, and I'll cover that later. You need an Eyewash gauge. This was designed, given to us by the Z358 .1 standard. They gave us the design. They said, make this. This is based on average human anthropometrics to make sure it's going to meet eyes. Every manufacturer has some version of this little gauge. Okay, you need a 5-gallon bucket with the 2-gallon water line marked on there really clearly so that you can indicate and test how much water is coming out of the unit. You need a shower sock and pole because it is called a drench shower for a reason. You're getting, best case scenario, about 20-ish GPM out of the shower head. Worst case scenario, you're holding on for dear life because you're getting about 30 to 40 GPM coming out of the shower. So hold on tight. You need a thermometer because we need a temperature check of the water. And then you need a checklist to ensure that we're meeting all of the requirements for the testing. This is our kit on the right here, the 9011 test kit. It comes with all those handy dandy little tools, but this is essentially what you're looking for to best equip your folks with the means to test their equipment. Now, getting into the requirements, and yes, those are all very real photos over there on the right-hand side, either taken by yours truly or pulled from a magical place called OSHA Reddit. If you've never been, it is absolutely horrifying, and I suggest you check it out. Now, the first requirement is that this equipment be accessible within 10 seconds or 55 feet. There's an exception, a rule that was added later for the 55 feet because 10 seconds was too hard to measure for all of us. That time and distance can change. So 55 feet is a solid measurable distance. We want to make sure from hazard to emergency equipment that it is within 55 feet and nothing extends that amount of that distance, okay? And it has to be free of obstructions. We have to ensure that there are no obstructions on the path of travel to the equipment or on the equipment. That includes hosing, piping, equipment, toolboxes, all of the stuff. I mean, look at these photos. I think those are definitely mouse traps sitting on top of that Eyewash. You have the one on the top right there where you're gonna be missing a couple fingers on top of it. And then you gotta crawl over the nasty stuff just to get to the Eyewash in the bottom photo there. So we don't need to create an obstacle course to get to this equipment. It is really important. The path is clear, activation is easy, and we need to make sure that proximity is within 55 feet. We can also not have any change in level to the emergency equipment, okay? Here's two really common examples. You usually see these like containment berms. They're made of concrete to get over those safely in your facilities. There's usually a series of steps so that you can get over those and those little bridges that they make. And you need to have emergency equipment on either side of that berm in this instance so that you have emergency equipment immediately available and on the other side because it has to be on the same level. We probably don't have great use of our eyes. We can't navigate stairs safely, and any change in level is going to be a tripping hazard, etc. It's going to prolong the amount of time it's going to take before we are receiving first aid, and we cannot have that. So no change in level. The area needs to be well lit, needs to be easily identifiable with highly visible signage, or you get these photos here on the right, where you have emergency equipment set into the background of some facilities, and without emergency equipment, these would be very hard to spot from a distance. And again, especially if you don't have great use of your eyes at the moment and have something in them. Okay, so check for proper high visible signage at the emergency equipment. Make sure that the lighting is good in the area. Make sure that the equipment is delivering flushing fluid for a full 15 minutes as well. This is easy to test outdoors. I know indoors in labs, hospital hallways, schools, etc., etc., etc. There are areas, of course, where we cannot just let an emergency shower rip for 15 minutes, right? So if it comes down to it, if you have an inability to actually just turn the shower on, run it for 15 minutes, test the source of the water, right? Go back, is the source of my water capable of running for a full 15 minutes? What size is the tank, the hot water tank? Do I have mixing valves in place? Like what is installed that is going to supply this piece of emergency equipment, and evaluate that and make sure that it's capable of delivering full 15 minutes, because that's the bare minimum in any safety data sheet. Now outlets, they got to be protected from airborne contaminants, or you get what you see there in the top right-hand photo. You get buildup, you get an uneven spray pattern from the Eyewash or iFace wash because it's clogged, it's built up, and you got nasty stuff collecting on the top of those devices. They are not protected. You need to have your dust covers in place. If it's a portable type of equipment, it's probably just a cap. That's your dust cover, the cap covering the tank so that there's no debris falling into the tank or collecting in the tank and creating issues with the spray pattern. Okay, so dust covers in place. The dust covers also have to be self-removing. Upon activation, they have to pop off completely on their own, and it cannot take any additional assistance to remove the dust covers. It has to be automatic. Whoops, kind of shot forward there a little bit. Let me make sure I'm on the right slide here. I think I am. So This is the requirement here is that the emergency equipment go from off to on in 1 second or less. I want to get that video going for you because I think this is really good. This is my buddy McDean. He works out on the production floor. He's an awesome dude, and this is excellent technique. We've got our shower. You need to be disrobing. You need to hold your eyes open, activating your eye face wash. But the main thing here is that you'll notice as he turned on the shower, as he turned on the eye face wash, those are stay open valves. You cannot have self-closing equipment in place. Okay. You also have to ensure that the water flow to the equipment is in 1 second or less. So you have to have immediate activation of the equipment. If it's taking a while, that's a big issue. We want this to be as fast as possible to ensure first aid is delivered immediately. Okay. Now, what you want to watch out for is valves like these. Okay. These are no-nos. You have self-closing valves there on the bottom left, where you would have to have constant pressure to keep these valves open and running. You cannot have these in place. These were very popular and these were allowed ages and ages and ages ago, but it has to be a stay open valve, right? I can pat my head and rub my belly at the same time, but I can't hold a shower open, hold an eye wash open, open my eyelids, remove my clothing. Like you're gonna have other things that you're gonna need to do. And we cannot have these self-closing valves in place, prohibiting that. Okay. Also, another version of hands-free operation, check how your emergency equipment is installed. Okay. This example on the right, this is a combination eye face wash and drench hose option. It's mounted on the wall, but there is zero chance, there is no way that you can activate this, let go, and utilize this. Okay, this needs to be oriented towards the victim in a fashion where you can activate it, let go, and hold your eyes open. Okay, so watch out for this type of installation. Also, it's a little too close to that outlet for my personal comfort, if you ask me. Now, each type of equipment has a specific GPM rate that it has to achieve. Eye washes, 0.4 gallons per minute. Eye face washes, 3 gallons per minute. And drench showers, 20. These are all bare minimums. Okay, we are allowed to provide more water than this to the emergency equipment, but it has to be in a controlled rate, a controlled flow of flushing fluid, like you see in this video. Okay, you have what is essentially like a real aggressive rainfall falling down on your back with the Axion shower head. You have a controlled flow of water coming from the eye face wash, rinsing your forehead area, your eyes, your cheeks. This is what you want to look for. Okay, this is full body decontamination as it looks like. And what we can't have is, well, I'll show you these. You don't want injurious flow rates. I call those brainwashers, okay, where you have no flow controls in place. You have an extreme amount of water coming out of the equipment, and you're not going to be able to keep your face in this for 15 minutes. This is going to hurt terribly on top of what it is that you're already dealing with. We need to gently rinse the contaminants and chemicals off of your body without doing more harm, right? You know, think of a shower pumping out 40 GPM. It's gonna be like standing underneath a waterfall. We need to do this in a controlled fashion. And if you've been exposed to something real nasty, your skin's already in bad shape, having to be under that for 15 minutes is going to be absolute torture. We need to control this flow, dial it back, and make sure that we're using the water as intelligently as possible. And then if you don't have enough water, check your supply lines. 1.25 inches is the bare minimum supply line for a combination unit for a shower and eye face wash or eye wash. For the smaller guys, you want about a 1/2 inch line. And otherwise you get this, you get starvation at the eye wash or eye face wash, and you're gonna have to pick your favorite eye. You know, this is not cohesive to proper first aid flushing. So ensure that you're testing, you're discovering this well beforehand, and that we're supplying the unit correctly. Now, this is that gauge I was talking about. This is our model 9015 eye wash gauge. That's the standard little snippet of it over there on the right-hand side. This is based on average human eye spacing and anthropometrics, ensuring that when we're using this gauge and we're aligning it with the eye wash or eye face wash, it is telling us, yes, this is going to meet your eyes. This is going to accomplish what it is that it's supposed to accomplish, and you have enough water here to accomplish that. That's what this gauge is telling us. Okay, so set your tape measure at a couple inches over 8 inches above the eye face wash, like you see here. Start at 8 inches with the gauge and slowly lower it. So long as that gauge aligns with the flow pattern for the eyes, at any point under 8 inches, it's considered usable, and you're going to get a proper flushing from the equipment for your eyes, and consider your face too when you're using this test. Otherwise, we're going to suffer issues like you see here on the bottom left-hand side, right? This is going to be very difficult to use. It's just not covering your face proportionate or correctly, and it looks like they haven't tested it in a while, to be honest with you. Here's an above view, so you can see. Look at the two eye wash flows there, hitting the gauge circles perfectly. This is ensuring again that this is usable. I'm going to let you see it one more time before I move on. So 8 inches, lowering it, and you have both streams hitting the eyes perfectly. That is exactly how this gauge is used. Now, a couple other considerations that you want to test for and look for: the flow pattern, the water coming from the unit cannot be any lower than 33 inches from the floor and can't be any higher than 53 inches from the floor. It has to be within that range. And that's ensuring, again, based on average human anthropometrics, our average height, that this is going to be at a usable height. Okay, and it also helps rain down any chance of there being an injurious flow or other issues. So the flow pattern between 33 to 53 inches. Okay, so just use a tape measure, measure from the floor to the top of the water pattern, and you'll have your answer there. Same thing, tape measure with the minimum distance here that you see on the bottom. So it has to be the heads of the device, whatever it looks like, whether it's our Axion head, like you see there in that main example, or on the right, if it's a dual head device, measure around both heads of the device, but they have to be clear by 6 inches, ensuring that there's nothing obstructing your use of the unit, nothing obstructing the flow pattern. You're not going to hit your head on anything. Now, the flow rate for the shower head. This is this test, and I mentioned this 9011 test kit earlier. You can see a couple of my buddies over here testing in our lab, and you can see the buckets in place, the shower socks in place, and what he's doing is testing for simultaneous use issues and checking the shower flow rate and some other things. So let me walk you through this. So you're going to need your 5-gallon bucket with a 2-gallon water line, shower sock and pole, thermometer. What you're going to do is place the thermometer in the bottom of the bucket so we can get a temperature reading after this test. Place the shower sock around the shower head into the bucket. Activate the eye wash and eye face wash if one is present. If it's just a shower, then there's no need to do that. But if it's a combination unit, the way it's designed to work, we want to make sure that both the shower and eye wash or eye face wash are running at the same time. Okay, and we're checking for any starvation of the eye wash or eye face wash. This happens a lot when there's no flow controls present, or if there's just not enough water plumbed to the piece of emergency equipment, so watch out for that. Activate the shower for 6 seconds and check that the 2-gallon water level mark on the bucket is met, and we know that we have 20 gallons. Okay, the way that works is just like how a nurse checks your pulse, right? She's not counting for a full 60 seconds every single beat. She's counting for 10 seconds and doing the math. Okay, so shower, 6 seconds, 2 gallons times 10, 60 seconds and 20 gallons. Okay, that's how that works. Shower flow pattern has to be a specific pattern. Okay, 20 inches wide, 60 inches above the ground. On the left, you have a compliant spray pattern. On the right, a non-compliant spray pattern. This is ensuring that shoulder to shoulder, that we are being properly covered with the water and we're really achieving full body decontamination. Okay, so grab your tape measure, measure 60 inches up above the floor and then 20 inches across. This is ensuring that that flow pattern is correct. Also, just a quick note, try to avoid and try to spot any gaps in that water pattern. This is our Axion technology going off in the video. It's a thorough pattern. There are no gaps in this pattern. Watch out for something I like to refer to as the donut effect. I think it's easy to remember that way. But units that utilize the shower bell can create a gap of water inside of that spray pattern because it's pouring in a ring around the user. Try to watch out for that as you're testing for this. There's nothing preventing that in the standard. This is more just a best practice, but it's not properly flushing the body. So be careful to watch out for that. Now the shower head has to be 82 to 96 inches above the floor. Just grab your tape measure, measure to the outlet of the water or the nozzle. That's what we want to measure to, not to the bell if that's not where the water is coming out of. We want the exit, wherever the water is coming out of. It has to be 82 to 96 inches. Below 82 inches and it'll be too narrow of a pattern. If it's above 96 inches, it may be too wide and not rinse our bodies properly. Okay, the pull rod also has a maximum height. Okay, it cannot be installed and be sitting on the unit any higher than 69 inches from the floor. So just grab your tape measure, measure from the floor to the bottom of the pull rod, and you'll have your answer there. This is making sure that the shorter amongst us can reach up, grab the pull rod, and pull. There are also ADA versions of emergency showers and eye face washes out there with pull rods, push flags, etc. within correct measurements for access from a wheelchair too, just as a heads up. Now combination unit components with the shower and eye wash or shower and eye face wash. Shower and eye face wash more commonly these days. That's really kind of the industry standard when you're talking about full body decontamination. It just doesn't make sense to have an eye wash with a shower anymore. You want an eye face wash, something that's really thoroughly rinsing your whole face off. But these pieces of equipment have to be positioned for simultaneous use by the same person, okay? We still run into installations where the plumber thought that the shower should go one way and the eye face wash should go another way, and they're for separate instances, but it's for one user at the same time. So make sure they're aligned and ensure as they're both working and activated, you don't have starvation of the eye wash or eye face wash. They have to be flowing correctly. You have to get your full amount of water over 23 GPM out of these, and that they're working in conjunction with each other. You also have to have, if you have shut-off valves in place, you have to have lotto devices, locks, etc. on these valves, and they have to be locked open. Okay, these are usually maintenance valves attached to the equipment above it or somewhere nearby. These have to be locked open so that not anybody can just walk by and shut it off. We do on-site evaluations. Hayden's going to talk about it a little bit later. You would not believe how frequently we find these where we activate the shower and there's no water plumbed to the unit or no water at the unit because the shutoff valve is in the off position. Okay, if there's a lotto or a lock in place, this holds the maintenance team and anybody else accountable for replacing that device and ensuring the valve is in the on position when they're done doing maintenance tasks and things like that. So trace the line back, make sure the valve is locked in the open position. Employees who may be exposed to hazardous materials need to be instructed in the proper location and proper use of the emergency shower, right? I call this the duh clause. If you make sure your employees know exactly where the emergency equipment is and make sure they know how to use it, okay? And how that particular brand is operated. Most of us stick with a pull rod and a push flag, but there is some equipment that deviates from that in a little in interesting ways. Nothing that's non-compliant. But a pull rod doesn't have to look like a pull rod, and a push flag doesn't have to look like a push flag. There are other ways to activate the equipment within compliance and make sure they know how to activate their equipment, okay? Now, where the possibility of freezing conditions exist, make sure you have freeze protected equipment in place. That's a couple of examples of ours on the right here. These are heat traced good down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit for that 7603, good down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit for that 8315. Make sure you're checking your local weather patterns. Maybe don't test it in June, test it in December, January to see if you have freezing conditions that need to be where the emergency equipment needs to be protected. Okay. Now, the one of the big issues with that too, especially when we're talking about freezing and stuff, is the delivery of the tepid flushing fluid. Okay, we have a temperature range that we have to accomplish between 60 degrees Fahrenheit and 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The water of the emergency equipment has to operate within that range, and it's for a very important reason. Okay, 16 degrees Celsius to 38 degrees Celsius for my friends up north. But this, making sure that the water is within this range, is helping to ensure that the victim is going to stay in the emergency equipment. Okay, if it's way too hot, it's going to force them out too early. If it's way too cold, it's going to force them out way too early. Okay, it's not going to be comfortable. Nobody wants to sit in 60-ish degrees water for 15 minutes, but it's it's very, very important that they get that full 15 minutes. Okay, first responders show up. They're probably going to ask, okay, well, how long have they been in the emergency equipment? Has it been 15 minutes? What were they exposed to? Hopefully your manager was already double checking this safety data sheets in the area. That time can go up to 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I think 45 minutes is the highest I've seen personally, but they're going to make sure all of that nasty stuff is off of you before they remove you to the ambulance and to the hospital, right? Otherwise, it's going to continue to harm you on the way there. Okay, and if it's too cold or too hot, you may not stay in there. Okay, it's going to be very uncomfortable. Now, on the cold end, if your outer layer, your insulation of your body is already damaged, you are going to lose heat very quickly. Okay, and ensuring that the water is fairly tepid, it's within this range, it's going to help. We try to focus on like an 85 degree Fahrenheit range or target to try to keep you from losing too much heat too quickly, and to keep it from getting the water temperature from getting too hot. So too cold, hypothermia, cold shock, cardiac arrest, very serious issues. You also may not remove your clothing, which is a big issue. If it's too hot, you're reaching hyperthermia. You're heating up too quick. You could get heat stroke, confusion. Scalding of the soft tissue of your eyes starts at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and skin burns start at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I have personally pulled showers. I think the hottest temperature I've run into is 128 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was burning my hand through the shower sock. So, and you're not going to be able to stand in it. That's crazy. And also watch out for that Legionella bacteria growth. It definitely thrives at much higher temperatures, just over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we want to watch out for that creating that environment for things like Legionella. Now, non-standard equipment here at the bottom, but this section is all about supplemental squeeze bottles. Okay, you might have squeeze bottles in your facility. Okay, this is called supplemental equipment. They're self-contained little bottles. You got to be checking their expiration on a regular basis. And if you have the mounting system on the wall, make sure you're ordering replacements on a regular basis, and don't let your employees hijack their use. I think you have the burn it out option in the bottom left there. We've got a frozen one. We've got a towel dispenser. We have the Windex option for a squeak-free Eyewash rinsing, and then I think the worst option there in the bottom right. Check expirations. This type of equipment, the squeeze bottles, they are supplemental. They are only meant to supplement primary plumbed equipment nearby. Okay, so if you have a hazard, you are exposed to something, you could grab that bottle, immediately treat your eyes while you are moving towards the shower and eye face wash that can provide full 15 minutes nearby. These are not to be used by themselves. Okay. A couple installation considerations. I told you there was no change in levels allowed. One example is a booth. So we're allowed to have a single step up into an enclosure, so long as it is a booth type equipment like you see here on the right. We can't make these flush with the ground with what they're designed to do, which is maintain a controlled environment inside or capture all the water and things like that. So these are allowed to have one single step. Otherwise, there's no change in levels. Okay. You can have a door, but it has to meet certain criteria. It has to be non-locking. Doors have to open in the direction of the emergency equipment, okay, so that you can push through the doors rather than stop and pull. The hazard has to be non-corrosive immediately. If it's corrosive, you cannot have doors in place. You have to have emergency equipment as close as possible and immediately available. And they have to be push bar or panic bar operated so that, again, you can push the door open as you panic in the direction of the emergency equipment, okay? So doors allowed, but within, a certain set of rules. A couple best practices to keep in mind: take your contacts out if you've been exposed to something. You don't want it getting trapped between your contact and your eye. Don't rub your eyes, right? We don't want cross-contamination. Disrobe completely. You got to be in your birthday suit. Contaminants are going to get trapped in your clothes. They're going to run down into your shoes and into your socks, and we need to make sure that that is not going to get trapped there and continue to harm you, okay? With that in mind, put privacy curtains on your emergency equipment. It's a great accessory, and on one of the worst possible days of your coworkers' lives, they could have a little bit of privacy during their first aid emergency. Okay, there's even a little robe in there that I tucked in, so you have a robe after. Well, I didn't tuck it in there, but I know the guy who does. So, bump test before high risk. If you're going to do something particularly dangerous, maybe make sure the Eyewash and shower is working before you do it. Okay. Be cautious while assisting, not to contaminate yourself or others. Do not touch them. Do not grab them. Do not lead them in that fashion. Just start yelling and screaming directions at the top of your lungs and guide them there verbally. Otherwise, you're going to make the situation so much worse. Okay. Ensure the correct type of signage, right? We don't want the incorrect type of signage in place and somebody moving to that and expecting a certain type of equipment and that not be there when they arrive. Because this should be obvious, and you would think it is, but this is way too common. You should see some of the photos I have. Be cautious. Do not install this drench equipment next to electrical hazards, okay? Please. Locate other first aid equipment nearby. Make it a safety station. Put the first aid station kit over there. The defibrillator. Make this area ready for a first aid emergency. And then clean your equipment regularly, okay? So we don't get that buildup, we don't get nasty stuff in there. We're avoiding obstructions and things like that, okay? Something else I wanna show you guys. This is a little silly, but I think it demonstrates proper Eyewash technique, so I like to show it to people, okay? Some of you might recognize this particular scene from The Office. That's Andy. And he is screaming. I didn't want to play the audio for it, but this is excellent technique, okay? Eyewash is on, hold your eyes open. Spread them as far apart with your fingertips as you possibly can. You want that water flushing underneath your eyelids, all around your eyeball, okay? This is a great example of how to do it. This is Z358.1. And this is just a quick reminder that safety, green, is the location of safety equipment. So make sure you're color coding your areas appropriately, okay? HAWS is always in compliance with Z358.1-2017. Our emergency equipment is color coded green to indicate the location of safety equipment. So be sure that you are adhering to that as closely as possible. And then remember, Eyewashes, wood shavings, dust, airborne particulates, and the such, that's what those are primarily used for. Eye face washes for minor incidents affecting only the eyes and face with chemicals that may not actually harm anything other than the soft tissues of your face, okay? But with that, we get a little closer to what would be full body decontamination. We just need the shower, right? The drench shower by itself is really a PPE decontamination tool, okay? And not for, like, you wouldn't rinse your eyes out with just a drench shower. So make sure you're using a combination unit if it's chemical exposure and full body decontamination that you need, okay? The place you find this information too is in the safety data sheet, okay? For the chemical or whatever nasty substance it is that you're utilizing and being exposed to potentially, the safety data sheet on section 4 in first aid will cover rinse your eyes for 15 minutes, rinse your skin for 15 minutes. It tells you exactly what type of flushing you need, and you can choose the appropriate type of equipment. All right, interactive poll number 2, and then Hayden's going to take over for a minute here.
Yeah, so our second interactive poll question is how much of your emergency equipment meets the ANSI ISEA Z358.1-2014 standard. And the options for this, you can only select one option, and it is 75% plus, 50 to 74%, 25 to 49%, 1 to 24%, and 0%. And this is an interactive poll question, so I will be showing the results of this question as well.
I dare you to select 100%. Just kidding. We do site surveys, which Hayden's going to give you a little bit of insight on, and it happens. It happens rarely, but every once in a while we get a bunch of green. It's a good thing.
So I'm going to go ahead and close this question out and show the results. So our top answer was 75% or more, with 67% of the vote coming in. And then it looks like we have a tie for the least responses, and they were both at 2%. It is at 0% and at 1 to 24%.
Okay, cool. Right on.
So after that interactive poll question and seeing what the majority of you think your ANSI compliance level is, I'm now going to touch on 2 programs that we offer to help your situation, really. The first one is our ANSI Emergency Shower and Eyewash Survey program, which you see here. And we have representatives across the US and Canada for this, and they are qualified and trained in the ANSI standard, as well as how to test for the standard and meet all of its requirements. And the survey program is a great way to offer you insight into your own facility's compliance with a free full-day inspection. Keyword there being free. And that inspection includes a inspection report, giving you a download of every piece of emergency equipment that was tested and how it measures up against the ANSI standard. An executive summary chart, like the one you see here on the right, breaking down the compliance versus non-compliance in your facility, and a debriefing meeting where we get to sit down with you, have a one-on-one conversation discussing our findings and recommendations and fixes for you. There are a few restrictions for this program. They mainly deal with distance to your facility or how many days it may take us to realistically be on your site. But you can visit our website using the link at the bottom of this slide and fill out that form to get directly in contact with Justin and myself, and we can sit down and have a discussion with you about how best to move forward. Now we have our next poll question. This one is, would you be interested in a free site survey of your existing emergency equipment for ANSI compliance? And that is the slide that we had just covered, that free site survey program. And the options for this one, pretty simple, yes or no. Give everybody a few seconds to go ahead and answer this one. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. So the next program we have is our HOS services program. And what we found is that when it comes to the ANSI standard, the issue tends to be not knowing how to test for the ANSI standard, and that then leads to fines for non-compliance or injury of an employee, among many other things that are possible with not testing your equipment properly. And the HOS services program is set up to help you achieve ANSI compliance in any environment and remove those potential pain points that you have, some of which you may not even be aware of that you have. And I would like to point out that we do offer this program regardless of what brand of equipment you currently have installed to your facility as well. You do not have to have HOS equipment in order to be a part of the HOS services program. And this is a great way for us to differentiate us from the rest of the market, because we are the only manufacturer that provides a warranty and field service like this for emergency showers and Eyewash products. And then a quick run through of what is included with HOS services. It's the bullet points at the bottom of this slide: the weekly and annual ANSI inspections, preventative maintenance and contracts, repairs and upgrades, startup and commissioning, online competent person training and certification, and a warranty service as well. And to really just sum that up, HOS services is a great way for us to ensure that we're complementing the superior products we provide you with the best possible service we can provide you with year round as well, because we want to make sure that we're helping you throughout this entire process. And then our final poll question for today: would you be interested in learning more about how HOS services can help you achieve ANSI compliance? Again, yes or no answer for this one, and give everybody some time to go ahead and put in their responses for this. After this, we will be moving on to the Q&A section of today's webinar as well.
Hayden and I are gonna just rapid fire hit a handful of them, some of the ones that Hayden red flagged for us, and then leave you with a slide with some contact information.
Yeah, go ahead and close this one up here.
All right, well, Hayden, why don't you hop into the first question?
Yeah, so our first question, I really like it. It is a little bit longer. I will say it's more like 3 questions here, but I'm going to just go through it real quickly. It is, what would require an Eyewash to have tempered water, and what temperature should it fall between? Is the temperature of the water due to potential chemical reactions to different temperatures of water? And is a 15-minute flush time required on weekly inspections? So I picked this one because we saw it quite a bit asked throughout this webinar, and this is a good way to summarize all 3 of these in one. The requirement for water temperature, as Justin said, is 60 to 100 degrees. So you are required to have tempered water that falls within that range. The water temperature range is set because too hot or too cold of water will cause the user to exit the piece of equipment too soon, or if they don't, they could suffer side effects such as burning of soft tissue or hypothermia on top of the emergency that they're already dealing with. It's probably going to be one of their worst days that they're having to use a piece of emergency equipment. So why not make it a little bit easier for them and put it in that temperature range? And then the last part of the question, we're going to just go ahead and say that the weekly tests only require a quick activation to clear the dead light. Meanwhile, that annual test is the one that needs to be run for that full 15 minutes. And then Justin,
dead light from a couple seconds of clearing the water out to, up to 10, 15 seconds if it's like a really big line and it goes for a good distance. So make sure you're clearing it out effectively.
Justin, our next question that you can go ahead and answer is there maintenance needed on emergency shower and Eyewash stations?
Yeah, you want to make sure from a maintenance standpoint that you're getting people out pretty regularly to clean the heads of the device. You do have to do those weekly checks, but if you have somebody doing that regularly, maybe once a month, once a quarter, go clean the heads. Like really, like take it apart and clean it. A lot of emergency equipment has built-in inline strainers. Haas comes standard with one. So take the strainer apart, clean it out, especially if you have pretty nasty water, and ensure you're getting all that debris out and stuff too. So clean the heads, check the inline strainers, make sure the signage is in place. That should be like regular maintenance stuff, but it's up to you how much you want to do. But at bare minimum, clean and get the strainer taken apart at least monthly or quarterly, something like that.
The next question is, can you identify where Eyewash stations are required? I'm going to sound like a broken record to the many of you that asked this question throughout the webinar, but the best way to do this is through the SDS sheet. The SDS sheet for the material causing the hazard is the ultimate tool for determining your need for a eye wash or an eye face wash or a combination unit. And almost everything has an SDS sheet. Even as Justin likes to say, dirt has an SDS sheet. In the first aid section, the first aid section for any substance will detail the need for flushing of the eyes or the skin or both.
And then just the presence of that chemical or substance and making sure you're within the 55 seconds, you know, and you can determine the placement of emergency equipment as well.
Yeah, and just to clarify that is 55 feet or 10 seconds on the same level as the hazard and with no obstruction in the path of travel to the equipment. And then the next question we have is, we have equipment installed globally in our labs. Maintaining inspections is a challenge. If we use a risk-based approach to determine if a lab does not meet an does not need an eye wash, can we tag it out of service and avoid the monthly checks, or would we have to remove it? What if we cover it? I'm thinking about a bag with an out of service label printed on it.
Remove it. Remove it from your facility, uninstall it, and plug the water line for whatever. You don't want that piece of emergency. If it exists in your facility, it needs to be maintained and it needs to be checked regularly, because the potential that somebody could use it, even if it is tagged as like out of service, and somebody, you know, has an emergency and it clicks, oh, we have that one over in this lab or this area, and they run to use it and it's non-functioning, that is a serious issue for you. So and a potential, you know, litigation type of a situation that we could avoid. So just take it out, uninstall it, get rid of it, put it in storage until you need it, whatever you need to do, but don't leave it there. And then
Hayden, next question.
Hayden, we'll cover the rest in the follow-up. Since we're running a little over, I want to close now. So we're gonna put all of the rest of your questions in a follow-up Excel spreadsheet and share that with you. I wanted to share this quick slide with you. This has our contact information on here. It has maybe the handiest. Our customer service team is absolute top-notch. They are an amazing team. If you have questions about our product, compliance, where to find it, how to get it, etc., these folks are absolutely awesome. You also have our website down there at the bottom, www.hosco.com. Sign up for our e-newsletter. It has lots of information about upcoming webinars, new product information. If you're looking for CEU credits, continuing educational credits, this qualifies. We will send out instructions post email or post webinar in our follow-up email with instructions on how to claim those CEU credits. So be patient. We'll be sure to send that information out. My information there is up there. We also have an upcoming new webinar called the Total Solution webinar, where we'll walk through the survey program a little more in depth, Axion technology and all the issues it fixes, Haas services, and tempering equipment and what it's for, how it works, etc. It's a very cool webinar, so information will be going out about that. That'll be March 8th coming up. And then check out our live chat feature on hosco.com too. Super handy. If you don't want to give us a call, you can chat your heart away at hosco.com. So in closing, just thank you very much for being here. I hope you really enjoyed this, that you had your answers to questions you had presented to you throughout the presentation. I hope you found what it is that you were looking for. Go forth, be champions for compliance, and let us know if you need anything. Thank you for being here.